You wake up one morning and realize something uncomfortable. You have been trying to look wealthy instead of learning how wealthy people think. You have spent years believing money is supposed to be seen: the better car, the expensive watch, the upgraded apartment, the vacation people notice, the clothes that quietly announce that you are doing better than before. You thought wealth was something you displayed after you earned enough of it. Then you begin studying people whose families have kept money for generations. And suddenly, almost everything you believed about wealth starts looking backwards. You notice they are not obsessed with appearing rich every day. They are obsessed with staying rich for decades. They think about ownership before consumption. They think about reputation before attention. They think about protecting capital before showing success. They make decisions as though somebody after them will have to live with the consequences. And once that way of thinking enters your mind, your life begins changing. You stop asking, "Can I afford this?" You start asking, "What does this cost me 5 years from now?" That question follows you everywhere. You walk past the car you used to dream about. For months, you imagined yourself behind the wheel. You imagined the reaction when you arrived somewhere. You imagined people noticing. Your income could technically handle the payment now. The old version of you sees the monthly payment. The new version of you sees the opportunity cost. You picture the same money invested. You picture the business equipment it could buy. You picture the emergency fund it could strengthen. You picture the freedom it could quietly purchase later. And something strange happens. The car becomes less impressive. Not because it is bad, because you finally understand what you would be trading for it. This becomes your first old money lesson. Price and cost are not the same thing. The price is what leaves your bank account today. The cost is everything that money can no longer become tomorrow. Once you see that, spending changes. You stop feeling powerful because you can buy something. You begin feeling powerful because you can walk away from it. That shift is almost invisible from the outside. But inside your head, everything is different. You start looking at your paycheck differently too. Before, income feels like permission. You earn more, so you upgrade. Better apartment, better phone, better restaurants, better everything. Every raise becomes a reason for your lifestyle to expand. But now you notice another pattern. Old money does not automatically turn every increase in income into an increase in consumption. You start separating the money that supports your life from the money that builds your future. The moment income arrives, part of it already has a job. Some goes toward investing. Some goes toward reserves. Some goes toward opportunities you cannot see yet. Only after that do you decide what lifestyle the remainder can support. You stop saving what is left after spending. You start spending what is left after building. It feels restrictive at first. Then it feels like control. Because for the first time, your future is receiving money before your impulses do. You begin noticing how many things in your life were designed to make you spend before you think. Limited time offers. New models. Luxury upgrades. Social media. People showing you what they bought without showing you what they own. You used to feel behind when you saw these things. Now you become curious. You see someone wearing a watch that costs more than your car, and instead of immediately wanting it, you wonder what percentage of their wealth it represents. You see someone driving a luxury SUV and wonder whether it is owned outright, financed heavily, leased, or being used to create an image. You stop confusing expensive with wealthy. That distinction changes the way you judge yourself. You no longer feel poor because someone owns something you do not. You understand that visible consumption tells you almost nothing about invisible financial strength. And invisible financial strength begins becoming your obsession. Not money hidden under a mattress. Options. Liquidity. Low debt. Investments. Skills. Relationships. A reputation that opens doors. The ability to survive a bad year without destroying your life. You begin building what people cannot easily see. At first, this feels boring. There is no applause when you increase your emergency fund. Nobody congratulates you because your investment account quietly grows. Nobody stops you in public because you avoided unnecessary debt. You cannot post, "I did not make an impulsive purchase today," and expect people to care. But you begin realizing that boring decisions are often what create exciting freedom later. This is where your relationship with status begins changing. You once wanted people to know when you were doing well. Now you become comfortable with being underestimated. You wear good clothes, but you stop needing every item to prove something. You take care of what you own instead of constantly replacing it. You stop upgrading simply because a newer version exists. You begin buying for longevity. A well-made jacket that lasts years starts making more sense than 5 trendy ones. A reliable car maintained properly starts feeling smarter than changing vehicles every time your income rises. A home chosen for sustainability begins looking better than one selected mainly to impress visitors. You realize old money often looks less exciting because longevity is less exciting than novelty. But longevity compounds. That idea enters other areas of your life. You stop asking whether something feels impressive now. You ask whether it still makes sense 10 years from now. Your career changes because of this. You used to chase salary alone. The biggest number wins. Now you begin looking at the entire position. What do you learn there? Who do you meet? What reputation do you build? Does the role make you more valuable or simply more exhausted? Does it give you ownership? Does it build skills that survive if the company disappears? Can it eventually create leverage? You start thinking like somebody building a life instead of somebody collecting paychecks. A slightly lower paying opportunity with ownership, strong networks, and valuable experience can suddenly look more attractive than the biggest immediate salary. You become patient. That may be the hardest change. Modern life trains you to want evidence quickly. You want the business to succeed this year. You want the investment to double. You want people to notice that your life is improving. But old money thinks in decades. So you start extending your timeline. A bad month does not terrify you as easily. A slow year does not automatically make you quit. You start asking whether the strategy still makes sense over 10 years rather than whether it impressed you over 10 weeks. You begin to understand why patience can look like inactivity to people who only think short term. You are not doing nothing. You are allowing compounding to do something you cannot force. If this is already challenging the way you think about money, subscribe now. Going back to the same habits after seeing them clearly is how people stay trapped for years. Then another shift happens. You stop talking about money as much. When you were trying to become wealthy, you wanted everyone to know what you were planning. The business idea, the investment, the income goal, the next move. You announced things before they happened because talking about them made progress feel real. Now you begin protecting your plans. You discover that privacy creates room to move. People cannot pressure decisions they do not know about. They cannot compare themselves to numbers you never share. They cannot sabotage plans they never see coming. You still talk to people you trust, but your financial life stops becoming public entertainment. You start understanding that old money often protects information almost as carefully as money itself. Not because secrecy makes you superior, because information creates leverage. You become selective about who knows what you earn, what you own, what you are buying, and what you are building. And suddenly, life becomes quieter. You make decisions without needing approval. You invest without needing to prove you were right. You buy something because it serves you, not because people will recognize the logo. You stop turning every financial milestone into a public announcement. That quiet becomes addictive, because you realize how much energy you were spending managing other people's perception of your life. Then your relationships start changing. Not because you become cold, Because you start recognizing the difference between a social circle and a useful network. You once thought networking meant collecting contacts. Now you think about trust. Who answers your call when there is no immediate benefit? Who has good judgment? Who keeps confidence? Who knows something you do not? Who behaves well when money is involved? Who would you willingly introduce to someone whose respect matters to you? The number of people around you matters less. The quality of those relationships matters more. You start protecting your reputation too. Before, reputation felt abstract. Now you understand it as an asset. A person who keeps promises can borrow trust before they borrow money. A person who behaves consistently gets invited into opportunities that never appear publicly. A person known for discretion learns things other people never hear. A person who burns bridges for small, short-term wins eventually discovers that money cannot easily rebuild credibility, so you become slower to make promises. But when you make one, you try to keep it. You stop risking your name for tiny gains. You start thinking about the invisible balance sheet attached to your identity. Your finances may say one thing. Your reputation says another. And sometimes your reputation is worth more. This changes how you negotiate. You stop trying to win every transaction. That feels strange at first. You used to think a good deal meant getting as much as possible while giving as little as possible. Now you realize that extracting every advantage can destroy relationships that could have created far more value later. You begin thinking in repeat games. If this person and you do business 10 times, does this decision still make sense? Will they want to work with you again? Will they recommend you to someone else? Would you be comfortable if the terms became public? You stop celebrating tiny victories that create long-term enemies. You learn that sometimes leaving a little value on the table buys something more valuable than money. Trust. You become harder to impress. The restaurant with the marble floor does not automatically excite you. The person with the loudest lifestyle does not automatically intimidate you. The entrepreneur talking about revenue does not impress you until you understand profit. The investor talking about returns does not impress you until you understand risk. The person talking about income does not impress you until you understand what they keep. You start looking beneath appearances. Revenue is not profit. Income is not wealth. Assets are not automatically good investments. Luxury is not automatically quality. Being busy is not automatically productive. And being rich today does not mean you are financially secure tomorrow. That last one stays with you. Because old money is not mainly about becoming rich. It is about not becoming poor again. That sounds less glamorous. But it changes your entire risk tolerance. You begin imagining downside before upside. Before entering an investment, you ask what happens if it fails. Before borrowing heavily, you ask what happens if your income falls. Before expanding your lifestyle, you ask whether you can maintain it through a difficult year. Before partnering with someone, you ask what happens if the relationship breaks down. You stop planning only for the best case. You begin surviving mentally inside the worst reasonable case. And if the downside destroys you, the opportunity becomes less attractive no matter how exciting the upside looks. You start appreciating insurance, contracts, emergency reserves, diversification, legal structures. Things you once considered boring or overly cautious begin looking intelligent. Because wealth is fragile, when everything depends on one income, one asset, one customer, one business, or one person. You begin reducing points of failure. Your confidence becomes less dependent on everything going right. That creates a different kind of peace. You stop waking up terrified that one bad event could erase years of progress. Not because bad events stop happening, because your life is gradually becoming designed to absorb them. Then you begin thinking beyond yourself. This surprises you. At the beginning, your financial dream was personal. You wanted the house. You wanted freedom. You wanted travel. You wanted to stop worrying about bills. All of that still matters. But once your horizon stretches far enough, you start asking a different question. What survives you? Maybe you do not have children yet. Maybe you do. It does not matter. You begin seeing wealth as something that can outlive your immediate consumption. Education, property, businesses, investments, knowledge, systems, values. You start thinking about what happens after the person who created the money is gone. That is one of the deepest differences in old money thinking. The unit of time changes. You stop thinking only about your lifetime. You begin thinking about generations. A decision that gives you pleasure for 3 years can look different if it weakens what could have supported your family for 30. A property that seems boring can become valuable because it creates stability. Teaching financial discipline can become more important than leaving somebody a large bank account. You realize money transferred without judgment can disappear quickly, so you become interested in passing down capability, not merely cash. You ask what habits created the wealth, what rules protect it, what mistakes could destroy it, what does the next person need to understand before they control it. This makes you think differently about your own education. You stop assuming you are finished learning because your income rises. You read about taxes, contracts, business structures, investing, history, negotiation, estate planning. You start appreciating people who know things you do not. Lawyers stop looking like people you call only when something goes wrong. Accountants stop looking like people who simply file forms. Experienced mentors stop looking expensive when one conversation can prevent a mistake worth years of earnings. You become willing to pay for good advice. That may be one of the biggest changes. The younger version of you tries to save money on everything. You do everything yourself. You avoid professional help because the fee feels painful. Now you understand that cheap advice can be unbelievably expensive. You stop asking only, "How much does this cost?" You ask, "What mistake could this help me avoid?" Sometimes paying someone thousands to prevent a six-figure mistake becomes one of the cheapest decisions you can make. Quality starts replacing cheapness. But quality does not mean luxury. This is important. You stop confusing old money with expensive taste. Sometimes the old money decision is the more expensive option because it lasts. Sometimes it is the cheaper option because the expensive one provides no additional value. The principle is not buy expensive. The principle is understand value. You start measuring what something gives you across time. The chair you use every day. The mattress you sleep on, the tools that produce your income, the education that improves your judgment, the preventive maintenance that keeps a property functioning. These can deserve money. But the object whose main job is making strangers think you are successful becomes harder to justify. And your ego does not like this. There are moments when you still want to prove something. You see someone from your past, someone who doubted you, and for a second, you want the car, the watch, the obvious symbol. You want them to understand that you won. Then the new voice in your head asks a brutal question. How much of your future are you willing to spend to impress someone who does not control it? Suddenly the purchase feels ridiculous. That question saves you money more than once. Your emotional spending begins shrinking. You stop rewarding stress with purchases. You stop using luxury to repair insecurity. You stop buying status after rejection. You stop upgrading because somebody else upgraded. Money stops becoming emotional medicine. It becomes a tool. And tools are supposed to build things. That does not mean you stop enjoying life. Actually, you begin enjoying it more deliberately. You spend generously on things you genuinely value. Travel with people you love. Time with family. Health. Comfort. Learning. Experiences you will remember. You stop believing discipline means suffering forever. Old money thinking is not about dying with the largest possible account. It is about making sure consumption never controls the system that creates your freedom. You can enjoy the fruit. You just stop cutting down the tree to get it. That image stays with you. The tree. Your investments are part of the tree. Your business is part of the tree. Your skills are part of the tree. Your reputation is part of the tree. Your relationships are part of the tree. Your discipline is part of the tree. Your lifestyle is the fruit. And the mistake is consuming so aggressively that the tree stops growing. Once you understand this, you stop measuring success only by what you can buy. You start measuring it by what your assets can support without weakening themselves. That is a completely different definition of rich. You begin wanting a lifestyle that your wealth can carry comfortably, not a lifestyle that requires your income to sprint every month just to survive. The pressure starts falling. You need less applause. You need fewer upgrades. You need fewer people to understand how well you are doing. And because you need less, you become harder to manipulate. Advertising loses some power over you. Social comparison loses some power. Peer pressure loses some power. Even fear loses some power. Because your entire identity is no longer balanced on consumption. If you're still here, subscribe. Most people will hear these ideas, feel inspired for 10 minutes, and then return to the exact habits that keep them financially dependent. Then one day, you notice the biggest change of all. Nothing dramatic happened. You did not suddenly inherit an estate. You did not magically become a billionaire. You simply stopped making financial decisions as though today was the only day that mattered. Your bank account is stronger. Your investments are larger. Your lifestyle feels calmer. Your relationships are more intentional. You have fewer things to prove. You have more things to protect. And the most important thing is not the money itself. It is the distance between what happens to you and how desperate you become. A surprise bill appears. You handle it. A job becomes toxic. You have options. An investment drops. You do not panic. An opportunity appears. You have capital available. Someone tries to impress you. You look beneath the surface. Someone tries to pressure you. You can wait. That is what changed. You learned that wealth is not mainly the ability to say yes. It is the ability to say no without fear. No to the purchase. No to the debt. No to the wrong partner. No to the bad opportunity. No to the lifestyle you can technically afford but do not actually value. No to showing everyone what you have. And every intelligent no protects a future yes. Yes to freedom. Yes to time. Yes to ownership. Yes to opportunities. Yes to people you trust. Yes to a life that does not collapse when one thing goes wrong. You used to think old money was about mansions, private clubs, inherited names, and quiet luxury. Now you understand the deeper idea. Old money is a time horizon. It is behaving as though your decisions must survive longer than your impulses. It is treating capital like something that can grow, protect, and outlive you. It is understanding that the things people see are often the least important part of wealth. You still enjoy nice things. You still have ambitions. You still want more. But more means something different now. More ownership. More resilience. More time. More knowledge. More control. More choices. And strangely, less need to prove any of it. You look at the person you used to be. The person who thought earning more automatically meant spending more. The person who wanted financial success to be visible. The person who asked only whether something could be afforded today. That person is still inside you. But now there is another voice, a quieter one. It asks what the decision becomes in 10 years. It asks what happens if everything goes wrong. It asks whether the purchase creates value or merely signals status. It asks what survives after you are gone. And once you start hearing that voice, you cannot completely unhear it. That is when everything changes. Not when you finally look like old money. When you finally start thinking like it.